When I think about spiritual health, Rain, I think about the sources of meaning in our life. And one of the most powerful sources of meaning that we have are the people that we engage with. Those could be friends and family. It could be the people we serve through our work or through our volunteering in the world. Um, but that people are an incredibly important source of meaning, like potential meaning, like in our life. There are other sources of meaning too. People might find meaning in their connection with nature. People might find um, meaning through their connection with the divine, and through religious practices or other spiritual practices.
And I do want to say that for 100,000 years, there was no disconnect between a connection to nature and to the divine.
That's right.
So that has to be in some way, shape, or form in our chemistry, in our neurology, in our DNA even, that the divine and nature are intricately interwoven and not two separate ways to connect. But continue, please.
Yeah, no, and so if you think about these really important sources of meaning, what's happened, I think, over time is I actually think we took a lot of these for granted. I think, over the years, like a lot of people just grew up in places where there was a spiritual tradition, right, or a faith belief system. They happened to live in nature because we didn't live in the kind of crazy, congested, settings we live in today. And you were born into and grew up with the same communities, that you had in the beginning, you had at the end, and you had your whole life. And so when we have relationships and we have a connection to nature and we perhaps have religious practices all just baked in as part of the default in our life, we may not need to do a whole lot to proactively go out and search for spiritual sustenance because it's there. But I think what's happened in relatively recent history is that our world has changed profoundly, right? We can't rely on those relationships anymore because we move around a lot. We change jobs. We go places for school. The shift from offline to online relationships has really diluted the quality of our relationships and the quality of our dialogue. And so lots changed in our relationships. The thing that's changed in terms of our engagement with nature is that we're cut off from nature a lot. Participation in faith institutions has gone down quite a bit over the last half century as well. And for reasons I think that I can certainly understand in many cases. But the combination of all of these together has, I think, led to a real crisis of meaning. And I think for many people, and when I talk to young people in particular, I always ask them the following question. I ask them, how do you define success? And what I'm really asking them, Rainn, is how does society define success for you, right? And what they often tell me is that success is what they see online, especially amplified on social media, is that there's a triad of success. And that triad is fame, wealth, and power. And if you can get all three of those, well, gosh, we'll write books about you, we'll make documentaries about you, you'll be in the papers, right?
You'll be on the cover of Vanity Fair.
You really have made it. And now, a lot of times, very interestingly, when young people tell me this, it's not with great gusto and enthusiasm, like, yes, this feels right. It's almost, in some cases, with a resignation that, well, not sure if this is going to work. It feels like we constantly have to hustle after this. They talk about this hustle culture, that they feel caught up in, where they have to, just pile on more resume builders, more achievements, more internships, more this, that, and the other, just so that they can get closer to that triad of success. But inside, even though they're not sure it's going to make them happy, they also don't want to be left behind, right? And if this is the way the world is going, they feel like they have to, follow this formula. So that is another problem that we have that I think has actually detracted from our overall well-being and particularly our spiritual and social health, because we not only can't just rely on the default being these core elements, of spiritual health and well-being, but we're actively being pulled in a different direction. We're being pulled toward a triad of success marked by fame, wealth, and power, and away from the true triad of fulfillment, which is grounded in relationships, purpose, and service.
Real success is that second triad that you're talking about,
yes,
which isn't necessarily celebrated on Instagram.
The Soul Boom Podcast. Subscribe now on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever else you get your stupid podcasts.